Hey everyone, welcome back to Dan91's garage. Last week we finished the log manifold for the turbo, so this week we need to start looking at a downpipe. That way we can get the exhaust gases from the TD04 turbo into the centre exhaust section that's vaguely held onto the car. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it and I'll see you in a sec. So we'll start looking at the downpipe now. Obviously this is the turbo outlet flange and the top of the downpipe essentially. So these two holes here have M10 bolts going through them and they're like 11 odd mil, and these are 10.5 mil, and they go onto the studs that are already fixed in the turbo. They're a bit tight, and because these are in slightly the wrong place, it sort of jams a little bit and won't quite sit flush. So what I'll do is I'll drill out these two to 11, leave this one as 10.5, so that way that can index off the turbo, and then everything else has got a little bit of play without sort of being able to flop around everywhere. Also need to double check the flatness of this because I'm not sure it's 100% flat either. We've obviously got to weld stuff up so it's going to shift a bit, but if it's really on the piss that might need a bit of a tickle. But there we go, two of them drilled out. Currently the hole's a little bit too small as well, so this is about 64.5 and about 64 across that way, so it barely fits in there. But you want it to sort of go in and be tight so you can position it without falling out or falling through basically. So I've already cut back the seam to here so it drops in about halfway, but you can't get both sides in, so I'm just going to tickle it out with the grinder, keep test fitting this, then we can carry on with the exhaust. Sorted, so it's halfway set into the flange thickness now. Tight enough so it won't fall out because of gravity, but loose enough you can twist it around and manipulate it whilst you're trying to figure out where the exhaust goes. So it's got a divorced setup for the pipes. So this one is supposed to feed the internal wastegate gases out separately down a pipe, which then joins up later with the downpipe. Being as this isn't going to be a huge power application and we're not in any danger of sort of overflowing or overrunning the capabilities of the 2.5-inch downpipe, there's no need for it. So I mean, Subarus run, you know, an easy sort of 300 horsepower with a simple flat plate on here, so even with a wastegate relief there's no real need for it in this one. So I did originally find this in my scrap bin, which is the section I hole sawed out to help with the welding of the turbo outlet flange, but that's absolutely massive compared to the hole I'm trying to weld up. Then I had a quick look on eBay and sure enough they sell everything. So yeah, 40mm laser cut disc, 6mm thickness. It's like £3 something including the postage, so at least half of that's freaking postage. So couldn't be bothered to spend 2 or 3 hours of my life sanding that to the right size. So anywho, we've got this now. So like I said, 40-ish mil disc, 39 I believe it was, yeah, 39mm hole. Oh, bang on. Oh, 39.01, send it back. But yeah, that's 1.5 inches obviously, so 25.4 plus the 12.7 comes out somewhere around 39 I guess. So anyway, we're going to sand this down on the disc sander, get him to fit in there, then we can weld him up. The other thing to remember as well, when you're working on small metal pieces, they can get quite hot quite quickly. So if you use sort of like a larger piece of metal that's cold as a heat sink, sort of put it on there and then let it sort of suck the heat out of it again, you can carry on working on it a bit quicker without burning your fingers. So I'm just tidying up the turbo outlet flange on the linisher as well. It was a bit warped one way, so it's got a low spot in the middle, so I thought I've got to take the scale off of it anyway before I weld it, so I might as well linish it flat while I'm doing it. And the other side's obviously bowed the other way, so we'll get this side sorted for the welding and then we'll worry about the other side afterwards, because once we weld this in we may well be linishing it flat again anyway. So yeah, let's get in there now. So I've set the blanking disc so it's flush with this surface. Tacked it twice on this side just to hold them in place. The bevel here I'm going to fill in with weld, fully seam weld that side. Same on this side, nice little fillet weld on the inside. I think best thing to do, I could either drill 100 holes in this thing, but it'll carry on going like that forever, so I think I'm just going to tack weld it here in 4 or 5 places just to stop the worst of it bowing. And it's a fairly small sort of localized weld. It is going to have a lot of heat into it, but it's nothing compared to what we did on the other one, welding up all 4 of the actual exhaust port outlets. So we'll go with that, and I'll see you when it's done. So there it is, all welded up. Linished it flat again. I don't want to keep linishing it too many times because otherwise we'll end up with no plate left, but it's down to about sort of 9.5, 9.3 now from its original perhaps 9.8 I think it started out as. So yeah, there we go. So that's ready to go on. We're going to now use the proper gasket, obviously. So see that pops on there, proper Subaru gasket and everything, which is actually really tight to the 2.5 inch outlet, or 63 point something mil outlet. So that's obviously a genuine Subaru gasket, and when you line the holes up, 4 of them line up, but this 5th one here is about sort of 1.5 mil in this way, so looks like whoever designed this flange got their calculations a little bit wrong, but it doesn't really matter, so as long as we've got clearance holes we'll be okay. So we're going to chuck this on the turbo. Okie dokie. So we bolted up our flange nice and tight with the correct thickness gasket in it. We've now got a 90 degree coming out of here. We've got a good sort of 25 mil clearance between here and the rad. So that's cool, and I've marked up obviously where the seam is onto the flange plate itself, so that way we know the angle of it. Then coming off of that I've got another 90 degree bend which is taped on at the moment. You can see the other end of it there hopefully. So it comes down here to this piece, and that's sort of rotated. I need to get that a little bit more square as we're coming towards obviously the entry to the downpipe. Currently this is too long. Scoop you under here a sec. So I've put some tape around here just to wedge him in there, and it's set pretty square in both directions. So now all we've got to do is basically join the second 90 from the downpipe to this piece here with our other 90. Now that's obviously going to go in there somewhere like that, but I'm working out basically what I need to do. This needs to be cut off at a bit more of an angle so it mates up square with this, and then we're going to put like a straight section in here. So this needs to be trimmed off. That'll be the angle there. We'll turn the 90 degree bend, hello, until it lines up top edge of this square with top edge of that. Then hopefully the exit from this to the entry to that through a little straight ring section will then mate up lovely and be perfectly easy to weld without any problems at all. So I'm going to carry on and make all of that happen. Of course, the other thing you've got to be aware of is, can you get access to stuff? So yes, I can still get a spanner on this piece. If I go across the top here, I can just about get a spanner on there as well. It's not great, but I can. Also, I have got some offset spanners, like offset ring spanners, but obviously I need the clearance to get the ring in there. And like I said, if we do get in trouble, we can always put a socket cap head in there because it's a smaller head, and the hexagon bit going in there with a bit of a wobble drive or a ball end or something, we'll be able to figure something out. So it's not a problem. I didn't really want to go with M8s. Sometimes you have to switch down to an M8 because they're easier to get in the holes and stuff. But either way, this is how it is when you're trying to put an M10 on a 2.25 inch lower flange. So yep, something worth checking. And also obviously we've got this bolt up in here as well, and you need to be able to get a spanner on that from below once your downpipe's in. And also be aware of where your oil drain, obviously the drain's going to come down from this face of the turbo, stay on this side of the plate, and then enter into the sump. somewhere about here. So we're well clear of all of that shenanigans. So after lots of umming and ahhing and messing about, basically, I figured out the angle difference between the two tubes is about 12.5 degrees. So obviously still need to shorten this up, but now I've got an idea. I can cut the section off of this upper piece now. So yeah, that's it for day one. It's definitely time for a shower and a cocktail, so I'll pick up with you guys in the morning. Okay, so I've had a bit of a scribble, drawn up my pipe essentially. So I've got to cut 12.5 degree angle on the bottom of this, so it'll line up with the pipe that's joined up to the centerpiece. So basically I've drawn it out. Obviously it's 90 degrees from that face to that face, and those are the inner and outer edges of the pipe. So I've drawn up my 12.5 degrees. Obviously it's important to get it from center. So if you try and cut your 12.5 degree angle from, say, the bottom edge here, when you cut that, you'll obviously end up with an oval shape because you're not cutting from the center point of the actual pipe's bore. So long story short, if we measure up, say, a 12.5 degree angle from the bottom corner, we end up at 66 millimeters. And just to show an extreme example, if you're going for a huge angle and you choose to chop there, you'll end up with the section this way being 70 odd, and the width of this is actually 64. So it's important to take your cut line from the center point. So anyway, from the center, which is obviously where these two points intersect, and if we measure across there, that length 64.5, 65 mil, which is obviously my bad compassing there, but yeah, so that's 64. So what I've done essentially to basically try and make this a bit easier, I haven't got anything else cleverer to hold this or clamp it or cut it, so I'm gonna have to chop it with an angle grinder basically. But if we measure up what we've got across the bottom, I've measured up here, which is obviously this section of the inner pipe, and that comes out to about 7 mil on the drawing. Then we need to measure up the back edge, which is 22, and then we need to find the halfway point on here and then measure up between there, and that'll give us how much we need down the side. So if I mark out 7 mil this side, 22 mil on the back face, and then quarter it, touch it here to find the quarters, and then I can measure up here whatever that part of the angle is, then I'll know that once I've chopped this off roughly with an angle grinder, I can then sand it down on the belt linisher, and we'll end up with our 12.5 degrees angle cut, and we should also be round still, and this should still measure 64 across here. So there we go, all taped off. 7, 15, 22 on the back. It's pretty straight, didn't do too bad a job, so that's pretty straight down to our center. So I think probably what I'll do is draw myself a line next to it, or at least covering over it. That way I can take the tape off, because when you cut it, the tape's just going to melt and burn out of the way, and you never know where you were. So we go around that with this, so we can peel that off. We'll have a nice sharp line. Once we've sanded away the line, we know where we should be. So not bad. So we've cut the angle on the bottom of this pipe, and that's now back in. We now have the bottom half we're trying to join up to it. So I've shortened down the reducer a bit here, took about 10 mil off of that, and that's now back in. So we just need to have a quick measure up basically to see how far off we are, because I don't think we're too far away from being good here. We sort of straighten up and push that at an angle. You can pretty much see that's gonna line up pretty good. We've just got to go that way now. So if you pop under here, obviously this isn't very easy to measure on camera one-handed in an engine bay, but I have measured up essentially. If I put that basically on sort of 51-ish, which is about 2 inches, and then put my thumb by the mark. It lines up to about the 4-inch mark. So basically we've got to take, we're starting at about 2 inches there, and the other end of this pipe is about 2 inches. So we're going to take 50.8 millimeters off of this straight section here, and thankfully there is that left. Now we've moved it in, this goes that way, this then lines up with this, and you never know, we might be able to use that ring there as a slip joint over the two of them, or we do have a nice piece of straight over there that we can cut a little ring out of. But like I say, once this is in the right place, it'll be a lot easier to measure the gap here, which looks about, yeah, just about 2 fingers worth. We're going to give this a trim up, 50.8, exactly 50.8. So that'll all be coming up on the next episode of Dan91's Garage, where we finish the downpipe. Thanks for watching as always, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.